Morning, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me. If I can get a thumbs up from somebody to show that you can. Yes, excellent, good. Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you about automation for an enhanced customer journey, and actually kind of talk to you about a bit of a journey that Home and Legacy have been on. So Home and Legacy is a business entity that's owned by Allianz in the UK. Allianz being one of the world's largest financial services companies, you may be familiar with them. Home and Legacy is a small niche business, generates around £10 million worth of revenue a year, compared to Allianz, which globally generates about 150 billion euros. So, you know, a small niche but well-formed part of the business. We operate in the high net worth sector, so we are looking after customers who have large houses, art collections, jewellery collections, those types of risks. And insurance being quite a traditional service and product, often requires a lot of information to be gathered to be able to put forward a quote or get terms. So back in 2015, we started on a journey looking at the way that we could perhaps digitize and automate the customer journey for high net worth insurance. Now, those of you that are familiar with the likes of Direct Line, eSure, those types of insurers, you'll be thinking, well, there's nothing new about digitizing an insurance customer journey. That's been done numerous times before, and you're absolutely right. But I think what makes it different for us in our particular market is the vast majority of customers who buy high net worth products use insurance brokers. They need the support of a professional insurance broker to help understand their needs, understand the risk that they present, and how that then gets presented to the providers in the high net worth market. So we went on a route of looking at how we could automate our customer journey, digitize our customer journey for insurance brokers to make it easier for them to get what we call an indicative quote from ourselves. So we looked at the range of questions that we ask customers, and potentially, we could be asking customers up to 75 questions to capture the information about their home, their contents, the construction of their home, what they do for a living, so that we can really understand and picture the risk that's being presented to us. We kind of did some work at looking at how we could perhaps turn that very lengthy paper-based questionnaire into something digital, something automated, and actually something that would drive more value to the insurance broker more quickly. So we compared the questions that we ask, and we split them into two different sections. We split them into those that drove the actual cost of the insurance, what we call the rating factors, and we separated out those questions that were the kind of the gatekeeping questions as to whether the customer qualified for the product. And what we decided to do was we would present the question set via our web journey to really drive through the premium calculating questions first. So we would give an indicative quote to the broker as quickly as possible by asking as few questions as possible. And then if that kind of piqued the broker's interest, they would then go through to a second phase of questions, which would not directly affect the price, but affect more about the risk acceptance criteria or the actual terms and conditions that were offered. So ultimately, we launched Home and Legacy Online in Q3 2016, and we actually reduced the question set that we were using from 75 questions to 11 questions initially to drive an indicative quote, and then followed that up with approximately 35 tick boxes, which were clustered together in common themes. So we launched this in Q3 2016. It was received very well by our brokers, and also within the insurance industry more broadly. We've won a number of awards for our E-Trade product, and we've also had it kind of validated externally by different insurance publications who do surveys of such things. But I think the key thing is, launching it nearly 5 years ago, we haven't rested on our laurels in terms of just kind of putting it out there and leaving it there. Over the course of time, in 2018, we further developed it, we further refined the question set. In 2020, we added the ability for brokers and customers to register claims via the service. And this year, as part of an acceleration because of lockdown, we've actually added a documentation portal to the service as well, so brokers are much more able to self-serve in terms of being able to get broker documentation, being able to get customer documentation. So it's something which has been quite a long drawn out process in a sense. On the face of it, it kind of sounds quite straightforward. Take a paper form and turn it into an online form, but it's then how you link everything in the background, how you join up the customer, the internal kind of customer service process. The other thing was as well, we wanted to make it clear to our brokers that we were trying to do this to drive what we call transactional efficiency. So we didn't want to stop talking to our brokers. In fact, we want to talk to our brokers as often as we can, but we wanted to have what we would consider to be more meaningful conversations. So we let the kind of the computer and the automation do the data capture, and then once the data capture is done, we can then have a more meaningful conversation with the broker about the customer, about their art collection, about their jewellery collection, about the 3 different homes they've got, and how much time they spend at each property, that kind of thing, rather than doing the kind of the mundane, what's your client's name, what's your client's address, what's their date of birth, all of that can be captured via the online journey. And as we progress into 2021 and beyond into 2022, currently we are looking at developing external data feeds to feed into our online journey, to either replace some of the questions, so actually we can use validated third-party data to further reduce the question set, or use third-party data to validate the answers that customers giving us, to again make the process quicker and slicker.
My name's Tarv Nijjar. As Emma's mentioned, I lead strategic initiatives for Mars Inc. I also now lead deep learnings in the AI area for Mars Inc. as well. And we're a privately owned family business in pet care, confectionery, food, and human health. So when I got asked to talk about predicting the future, at first I thought about do we talk about some specific use cases itself, or do we think about this from an enterprise-wide view that hopefully can kind of be a copy and paste for all of you in your organization? So I thought we'd go with the latter. And 2020, it's quite funny. You might have seen this next slide shared around on WhatsApp and email, talking about 2020. At Mars, there's this saying before even COVID around going at 100x speed, trying to make everything human-centric. But actually, people are now saying, who led the digital transformation of your company? And I remember Michelle saying earlier at the start of the call that it's been manic since the start of the year, right? I think that's just been the same across all companies. They're literally going at full speed. And there's this joke around, well, who led the digital transformation of your company? Was it the CEO? Was it the CTO? Well, actually, no, it's probably COVID-19 that's made everybody kind of, respond and work in a different way. And specifically in Mars at that time, we were getting a lot of, so I sit in the data and analytics area of the business across all segments, and we were getting asked a lot of questions of, what does this mean? Where will the year end? Will we make what we've planned to make by the end of the year? Some of our businesses were rocketing. If you think about people stockpiling in pet care and pet food, some of them not so. People going into lockdown were not eating as much chocolate or chewing as much gum because of the physical interaction. So there was a lot of different, problems that we faced. And to be very specific, there were already 200 projects across the enterprise that used AI before COVID happened. And actually, it wasn't, widely known about these different projects, about what they are, what they do. So what my team started to do was really look at partnering with the different functions within Mars, looking at specific problems and looking at how we could use AI to solve some of these specific problems, looking at in the future. So how will our consumption play out in terms of sales? How do we allocate our media better in terms of our investments for the year ahead based on people being in lockdown? How much do we need to make from a supply point of view? What's our bottom line looking like if you think about the P&L, and so on and so forth. And also we wanted to make sure that anything with regards to AI, we wanted to showcase that actually the Mars AI journey is a human-centric and purpose-led one. Our purpose is the world we want tomorrow starts with how we do business today. And we wanted every associate to be able to feel that the purpose manifests itself in every AI project. But what actually happened, if I'm being completely honest, is we had a bunch of, nervousness, people a little bit worried that actually we were coming to partner with them to replace their jobs, and we didn't actually get the speed that we needed to be able to act in a very, very high disruptive time. So taking a step back, while we were still doing all these projects, Sandeep Dudlani, who's our Chief Digital Officer, I had a conversation with him about this fact that there's this huge capability gap in the business around people just understanding, 1.0, what AI is and what AI is not. So we said, okay, yes, we're doing all these great projects around AI, but how can we actually use 2020 as a way to be able to bridge that gap right the way across the business? So not just the data scientists or people working in digital technologies, but actually people working in each of these functions, learning a little bit more about AI and learning how, and what AI can do to help them in their roles. So, first and foremost, we did some basic things during the actual projects themselves. As Emma mentioned, every project started with the problem that we want to solve. We looked at it from a persona point of view. We looked at it from a user-centric point of view, but we also then helped educate the difference between artificial narrow intelligence and artificial general intelligence, where a lot of people have thought, because it's in the Will Smith film I, Robot, that actually where we are today is more close to artificial general intelligence. We're going to get machines to replace humans and think like humans and do what humans do. But actually where we are is probably just a little bit beyond artificial narrow intelligence, where things like Siri, Alexa, deep learning translator, where we can repeat, and you've already heard Adrian talk about automation, but we can repeat tasks to make more efficient ways of working for associates. Yes, there's GPT-3, where you've got now a machine writing a newspaper article in the last year as well, but actually we're a long way away from where people were worried that we are to replace their roles. And actually that really helped unlock this thinking around, wow, what else could I do in my role now? And actually, what problems could I free up using AI to be able to help Mars, A, and B, help myself within role? We said that there's actually something here. So let's take this even further. So we actually thought about what started was this half-day meeting. This is why I completely in awe of the team here, of the events that they put on, because I what was meant to be a half-day morning, I got roped into actually doing a 5-day virtual event for Mars Inc. And it was the Mars AI Festival. Now, we did this at the end of last year, and the objective of this event was that it was a week-long, all virtual, immersive experience for Mars associates only. So it was an internal event to educate, demystify, but also celebrate, because we thought we needed a celebration to be able to actually end the year. And actually, what we started to do, thinking about Mars's 5 principles, 3 of them are quality, responsibility, and mutuality. So how do we work with our partners, such as Microsoft, many other companies where we had many speakers come and actually talk on different topics? How do we help them also talk about some of the stuff they're doing within their organizations? How do we partner with some of the companies where we can actually help bridge that gap that I talked about? So we had founders of Coursera and the founders of Udacity also come and talk as well. And actually we split the event up because we said, how can we make the event user-centric? So how do we get someone in sales completely on board with this? How do we get someone in supply completely on board with this? So we split it over 5 days in the end, where it started from anyone can and should learn AI as a theme, right the way through to future focus, healthcare, sustainability, and supply and demand. And the results, you can see some of the things that the two that I really want to call out is that actually we had 4,000 associates actually take training. So every single day after you had the speakers, there was an hour in partnership with Microsoft or Coursera or Udacity on learning different parts of AI for anybody, any role within Mars. And actually the whole, the incentive for an associate was at the end of the 5-day event, they were given a certificate which was called AI at Mars, which was in partnership with Microsoft, Udacity, and Coursera. So there's many other great things that happened, over that week. But the big takeaway from me was the from and to. So really, from machine learning to human learning, people laugh when I say this, but we went from an organization where we had many people, not willing to partner and worried that, and having a perception that AI is here to replace them and in their roles, to actually now I get emails from associates right the way across the world saying, hey, I've got this problem which we think that AI could solve, with this growth mindset and being able to take these new insights and capabilities to integrate into their own roles and learning. And one other thing that's come out of this, which I only want to talk about because of the conversation, Phil, you were having at the start about university in the class of 2020. As a result of this, we've actually now said, okay, let's do a digital data and analytics apprenticeship scheme right the way across Mars and the world, where we can actually say, okay, for those people that haven't, taken university on, or maybe are worried about what does beyond university look like, we're actually now saying, let's intake 50 to 100 individuals who are on that journey to bring them into data analytics, an area where typically we wouldn't look at an associate if they weren't a graduate from a university. So